it again. Incomparable God. The word incomparable is an interesting word because it basically means to be unmatched. It is to be without equal. It is to be unrivaled. It is to be unparalleled. When we understand in this particular context what incomparable is all about, God then is the father of creation, but he's also the author of sustainability. He's the source of our healing, and he's also the curator or the guardian of all of our success. God is the giver of our wisdom and the architect of our personal growth. At the same time, he's also the giver of life and the very embodiment of truth. God is so fulfilling that you only need a little of him to get full. Sometimes all it takes, you don't even have to call his name. You can have his name on your mind and pick out something that he's done for you and just use two of your human words like thank you. And that's enough for God to fill you up right where you are. Somebody here got enough right now because you know that you wouldn't be where you are today if God hadn't interrupted the devil to make some things happen in your life. Somebody talk to your neighbor and say, I'm here because God interrupted the devil on my behalf. And seeing it in that context and understanding it that way, who and what can compete or compare with that? Because if God is all of this, then there's some questions we have to do in our daily walk. Why is it then difficult for people to see and believe him in their everyday life? Even believers wrestle sometimes with their faith and where they are in God. See, here's some things I want you to consider. The first one is that the perplexity and sometimes the conflict of those that seek to know him is found in our righteous reasoning we have behind our inner search for him. It's our righteous reasoning sometimes that keeps us from being in a posture. If we look at things right, we can have it right. Here's something to consider. One challenge of the generational worship, that whole experience of generational worship, is that for it to be real, we have to know that some people, I was sharing with Elder Cannon last week, some people want to be stirred and other people just want to be moved. And generally it's not at the same time. And some of the problem here is that stirred people are generally after a change, but moved people are generally after a moment. And because of it, people generally get to know God then within the framework of their maturity. You cannot expect a child to make grown-up decisions. But in the posture of understanding how people worship, they worship based upon where they are in life. Much of our waiting is based on our growing process. I want you to understand that. Talk to somebody, say, much of your waiting is based on your growing process. Sometimes God makes you wait just so you can know you grew up. Just so you can get to where you need to be, that you can actually approach the next situation that needs to happen in your life. And sometimes we mad at the system and the divine system, and we think God ought to be doing something for me and with me right now. But God sometimes puts in a moratorium on your opportunity to understand what's coming to you while he grows you up so you can become who you're supposed to be. When the Apostle Paul wrote, when I was a child, I spoke, I understood, and thought as a child in 1 Corinthians 13 and 11, he was not just speaking of age. He was speaking of the personal level of an individual's responsibility. You see, when you are not developmentally ready to be responsible for your own life, you have to be trusted in stages with the lives of others. Where's that biblical? If a man cares not for his own home, how can he care for the things of God? The whole deal is that God will make you wait sometime until you get it together before he elevates you to where he has promised your dream. And so he puts you in a posture where you have to work to it, and so you can receive everything that God has ordered for your future. So the word today here is about the people who are beginning to come of age in their faith. This is often considered the ending of a story when you to look at the Red Sea. But what we need to pay attention to that is that this is not the end of something, but this is the beginning of something else. This was the beginning of a new freedom for Israel to journey with Moses on the way to accessing the promised land. And I came to tell you, just like you crossed out of last year into this year, you're getting ready to access some stuff you've never accessed before. And it's important for you to realize that you didn't just end some stuff. Some stuff just got started for you. Somebody talk to your neighbor and say, some stuff just got started for you. You understand it that way. You understand then the people and those around you are important to your destination and to your journey. Sometimes God sends you on a journey, but it's good to have good companionship when you head out in a journey. Sometimes you have to look at those around you and say, I'm glad we in this together. Can anybody say that in the room and find one person in the room you can point to and say, I'm glad we in this together? The essence is that we have to be in a posture where we begin to promote faith in God among each other. And whatever you go through in life, there is one must do that you cannot defer, you cannot ignore, eliminate. And that must do is that you have to keep your faith healthy. We all need a faith that is in shape. All of us need a faith that is in, let me say it to you, is in shape. All of us need a faith that is in shape. While praise will shift your future into gear, you still have to press your faith to accelerate into the manifestation of the things that you want to see happen in the midst of your life. And so a major point is that when you have faith, faith makes it okay to be obedient. Somebody talk to your neighbor and just tell them faith makes it okay to be obedient. Faith makes trusting God, hear me, faith makes trusting God a reasonable decision. It puts you in a posture that doing God's will becomes a trustable thing for you. When you have faith, you understand that God has given you something to work with, and when you feed on faith, your life is full of obedience, and you believe that obedience is always truly worth it. Understand, if you can remain disciplined and obedient while God is moving on your behalf, faith will cause a new reality to literally blossom out of your obedience. Understand this particular way, because God honors the standards he puts forth for our lives. I hope y'all hearing me. What God set as the standard, he honors it. And so if you will just stick with the standard, look at somebody and say, just stick with the standard. Be right. Do what he tells you to do. Operate in holiness. Have the fruit of the Spirit. If you can stick with the standard, God can honor how you living. He can bless you if you just stick with the standard. Somebody help me talk to your neighbor. Stick with the standard. That's another sermon I need to preach. Because every once in a while, we need to understand we cannot do it our own way when God has a way that's more efficient for us to get to our purpose and the goal that he's designed for our lives. Understand, the Bible tells us you got to have faith, because the 6th verse of the 11th chapter of Hebrews says, without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to him must first believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Your blessing is following your obedience. Somebody ought to help me here and tell your neighbor your blessing is following your obedience. You wonder why some stuff haven't happened? It's not going to happen until you obey what he told you to do. If you waiting on last year's promise to manifest, go look at last year's demand on your life and see if you carried it out. And if you didn't carry it out, go back, tell God I'm sorry, and fix what you need to fix so you can get where you need to go next. Because I came to tell you your blessing is following your obedience. Somebody needs to help me talk to somebody and tell them your blessing is following your obedience. I want you to hear me clearly here. Hear me clearly, because sometimes we sidestep each other, and sometimes we think that we can sidestep God. And if obedience is better than sacrifice, then it must have a measure to it. Hear me. If it's obedience is better than sacrifice, it must have a measure. Somebody say that with me, measure to it. Our greatest increase lives in the prosperity of our obedience and is full of blessings waiting to shower on us. There's a measure to it. And so when we really learn how to obey God, we stop losing common sense battles. We become attracted to good decision making as our normal thought and behavior practice when we really want it. When we look at your neighbor and say, do you really want it? Yeah. Stupid stuff stop messing you up. That's all I'm saying. When you really want it, you make decisions based upon God's will and not what you like today. When you really want it. When you really want it. We learn how to reposition ourselves, becoming drawn to the success that is specifically designed for our lives. And we become better at even self-evaluation, learning to dress our lives in what fits our destiny rather than being closed in situations and things too small for our future. Too often, we too tight with what we got on. And when you dress like the past and try to go into the future, you're inappropriate. Oh, y'all gonna wake up to me in a few minutes. I'll get to the part y'all can say amen to the preach, but I gotta talk to you first. At some particular point, we have to learn to stop taking ourselves so seriously and learn that what we do in life for a season does not define who we are. And no matter where we are in God, we can get better. Every day you wake up, you got to say,